We're here with Bill Wilson. He's the godfather of the instrument division here.
Okay.
So what do you do at Lansmont, Bill?
Well, manager of the electronics department. We do the production, calibration of all of our instrumentation, some of the assemblies for the heavy equipment from the other side of the building, but like I say, primarily electronics and calibration on this side. Build the instruments from the ground up, do all the testing.
All right, very cool. So it looks like you have kind of a display behind you there. Tell us what you got there.
Well, Dallas Instruments actually started back about 1970 in what they call blasting seismographs or strong motion seismographs. They use explosives to break up the ground to get to coal when they're surface mining. And you're generating vibrations in the ground, which can damage foundations, crack walls and things. So the instrumentation was to monitor them and make sure that they were not causing damage. There was, at the time, Office of Surface Mining very active. They were in charge of regulating how hard you were allowed to shake the ground, and in fact how much noise or air overpressure you were allowed, because they can make a loud enough boom to actually pop windows out of buildings.
Oh, man.
Pressure wave. So one of the earliest models is the B2. It was simple. It was a single axis unit with a meter on it. Didn't even produce any hard copy record, but it did quantify exactly what had happened. And I don't know, that's kind of always been the philosophy. Before you can control, you have to measure.
Yeah.
You have to know what it is that you're doing before you can say, I've made it better, I've made it worse.
Yeah.
So that's why accuracy has always been very important to us. We have the BR23. It's a 3-axis unit. As a velocity transducer, similar to an accelerometer, but it's peak particle velocity instead of acceleration, but it's still pretty much the same technology.
You'd stick that thing in the ground, and it would kind of feel how the ground moves?
Typically, you actually shallow burial.
Really?
Dig a small hole, put it in the ground, backfill it with dirt, because you don't want it moving relative to the ground.
So wherever the ground goes, it goes.
Right. You want to measure ground motion.
So is that's a crane bucket in the picture there? Is that what that is?
Yeah. It's a drag line. You can see.
Hold that other one up. Is that a Suburban sitting in front of that crane bucket?
Yeah. This blue boy out there.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. We got to get that.
When he was brand new.
Bring that up here. That's cool. What year was that?
85.
1985.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, basically these are waterproof because, like I say, a lot of this equipment would sit out there 365 days a year out in, middle of Indiana in the coal mines and the mud and the dirt and the snow, and had to take data. So, that'd be pretty rugged equipment.
Yeah. And how did this one work?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
This one just recorded on a paper tape. It's a chart recorder, and you'd get a bar graph of peaks of level versus time. So you could actually go back for the whole month and read the date and time off of there and the amplitude of the event that had occurred.
Very cool.
So, there was another one of these that looked very similar, but it was the vector sum, and it actually did, in analog electronics, did a vector sum of the 3 channels.
Jeez.
So analog vector sum circuit was quite interesting to figure out how that worked when I had to start troubleshooting those things.
Yeah.
But
holy cow. What else you got over there?
Well, then we've got a newer generation, ST4D. It actually used a cassette tape to record the signal. Recorded 4 tracks of data simultaneously, 3 of ground vibration, 1 of air overpressure, would stamp date, time, and summary information on the tape. And very precision, low noise tape decks. Signal noise ratio comparable to some modern electronics. The first one, the ST4, we actually had to use an analog bucket brigade delay line to get pre-trigger data. You couldn't.
So you could get pre-trigger on a tape.
On tape, pre-trigger data on cassette tape.
Now that's a trick.
It was.
Holy cow!
So using that bucket brigade, we had about a half-second delay. In less than a quarter second, we could have the deck up to speed and stable. So we get at least a quarter-second pre-trigger data.
I can't believe it. That is too cool. Talk about ingenious. That's neat.
Yeah. And like I say, all of that, it's got to run off of batteries for a month out there because they come by once a month, trade out tapes, and go again.
So a tape would last the whole period then?
Several hundred events on a tape, yeah.
Very cool.
And I guess on the ST4 we actually had a patent on it because of the pre-trigger data, the way we were doing that delay. It was actually patented because I think it was the first self-triggered machine that got pre-trigger data out there.
Is that right?
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Patented ST4. Back about 76, 77, I guess. It's quite a while ago.
Very cool.
And then this was the redesign of it about 1985, just because, as usual, parts get obsolete. So we went from the custom plywood boxes.
So that thing's like the size of a suitcase. As we keep moving over to the right here, they seem to be getting smaller.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously technology keeps evolving, and we keep, finding new things we can do it with. I'm going to point out in the old ST4, the original one of these, the entire lid of the unit was one giant circuit board that was just stuffed full of ICs because there were no microprocessors back then. They were anywhere near low power enough to do the job, so it was all discrete logic. I think there were 180 chips on that one board.
My goodness.
But then, like I say, I guess, when was it? About 1986, started looking at packaging industry and transportation of goods. And again, needed a battery-powered, rugged, reliable recorder. In this case, the accelerometer to pick up instead of the velocity transducer. But from our point of view, it's the same thing. You're digitizing a signal, you're storing it in a calibrated unit, read it back, measuring what's happening so you can control it. The drop height recorder was 3-channel. It had a patent issued for the use of high gain channels to calculate free fall time. From free fall, you can calculate, in effect, how high was it dropped from.
And what year was that about?
Oh, you would ask me that.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, 1986, November of 86 was the first one of those. That's the first one of those we shipped. Actually, one of the first customers was IBM with Selectric typewriters. Now, wouldn't think that'd be a big deal, but evidently they had a problem with the keys popping off the keyboard during shipment. They'd rigged up this big, elaborate piece of folded cardboard and padded foam and everything just to lay on the keyboard and hold the keycaps down. Well, using the drop height recorder, they found out it really doesn't happen that often that it gets dropped on its lid. We could probably do away with that. It was about $1 a package extra. Well, in the first year, they saved $1 million by just pulling out that one piece of extra cardboard they didn't need.
Yeah.
So, pretty quickly paid for itself. Kind of a spin-off of that was take this electronics, put it in a bigger box, but with external accelerometers. Call it the SR4 shot quarter. So you can really start seeing the evolution. This thing would run for about 10 days on its internal battery.
So that's kind of more akin to the far end of the table here, right? We're getting,
that's
getting
what
closer.
We're starting to get into that end of it. Yeah, the packaging, transportation, anything can be damaged, anything from bananas to satellites.
Yeah.
If you move it and it can be damaged, you want to know why, how, when. Whether to package it better to prevent damage, to charge the shipper for liability, who damaged it, who had it then. No, the railroads liked them because they could find out where there were bad sections of track. Just, in effect, monitor the whole trip. When it got high-level signal, they go, okay, that's about 8 hours out. That's probably this section. They could narrow down pretty closely where the track needed to be maintenance done on it.
Yeah, yeah.
But the next major field instrument was probably the Saver, which has been kind of our hallmark instrument for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And you can see there's quite a reduction in size and weight there.
You could probably put 10 or 12 of those in that one box, huh?
Pretty close. You know, you go from 10 days runtime to 28 days runtime. Go from half a meg of memory up to 16 megs of memory. So,
so it's getting more powerful and smaller.
More powerful and smaller. Of course, computers would come along too. The analysis programs get a lot more sophisticated, a lot better. Windows would actually come into play.
Yeah.
These instruments ran on DOS, if anybody remembers old DOS programs. So.
Yeah, I have a faint recollection of that.
Yeah.
And what do you got hanging around from this generation?
From this generation. Okay, one of the earliest of the newer instruments, the 3L30, it actually started life called a transport logger, and it really caught on. Again, you can see, getting smaller still.
Yeah.
3 channels of data, 100 largest events. Had another customer that needed this type of instrumentation, but it had to be read and it had to run twice as long. So we did a custom packaging, called it a 3L60.
Yeah.
60 because it runs twice as long. Probably one of our newer instruments. It's actually been around quite a few years now, the 3X90. First instrument we came out with, as far as I know, that had the USB communications up to, 128 meg data, and it'll run for 90 days on 2 9-volt batteries. So you can see, like I say, we're going from this at 10 days to this
so
for 90 days.
You could probably get a dozen of those in that box.
If not more, yeah. You could...
and it runs, 10 times longer?
Yeah.
And probably 100 times or 1,000 times more events, right?
Yeah, like I said, at least 256 times the memory capacity.
Yeah.
Half a meg, 128 megs. So, yeah. And again, built-in temperature, humidity recording also. Then its big brother is the 9X30. It also has the internal 3 channels recording, but we have 6 external channels. We can have up to 9 accelerometers worth of data being recorded by one instrument. It'll go for about 30 days on a set of batteries. So looking back, I guess actually the 3X90 probably compares pretty good to the drop height recorder. The 9X is more like the shot quarter.
Yeah.
Don't, keep the definition exact. There is also another version of this that has GPS recording capability built in. You can hook an antenna to it, point it at the sky. It'll not only log what happened, but where it happened. So
where it happened and how fast it was going and what direction.
It was going at the time and everything else. So you can map it, come back and don't have to guess, calculate, figure where you were. Just look at it on the map.
There you go. Very
Zoom
cool.
in and go, oh, I guess that railroad crossing is kind of bumpy.
Might be a problem. Very cool. So I see you have some things over here, like I'm trying to figure out why there's a Pringles jar sitting over there on the shelf. Looks like a bar of soap and a hard drive. What's that all about?
Okay, we have another unit that we, it's actually a set of electronics that we can embed inside of a product. The shock logger. Very small set of electronics. You can see here in this picture the relative size of the electronics versus the disk drive. Because obviously on computer disk drives, if they get hit too hard, they die.
Especially in the early days of disk drives.
Especially in the early days, yeah. They're a lot more rugged than they were, but I don't know, you probably can't see it, but this one has a nice surface all over it. Got a little piece of dirt up under the head when it the head dinged in one time, and then it sat there and ground all the data off of it. So.
A high-speed grinder.
Yeah. So we can, like I say.
So you can take one of these instruments and actually embed it in that product. So
right,
it looks like that product.
Embed it in the product, make a decoy where maybe the people on the assembly line think it's just a regular product. Are they doing something wrong, causing problems? Is the handling machinery? A lot of this is automated assembly line.
Yeah.
Is the assembly line causing the problem? Actually put one in a bar of soap. You wouldn't think, well, who cares on a bar of soap if you damage it? But cosmetically, it's real important to people that when they get a new bar of soap, it doesn't have chips and dings and the corner isn't broken off of it. So by monitoring the production line, you can adjust the machinery to where it can get them put in the box without scratching it, without hitting it too hard, causing problems.
Yeah.
That's the mayonnaise jar. We've had that. Whiskey bottles, Pringles potato chips.
Is that right?
Yeah, obviously, nobody likes to get a can full of Pringles crumbs.
This is true.
And they spent a lot of time and money studying the best way to put their potato chips, to ship and transport them. I mean, do you get more breakage standing up, laying on its side? Which way, shrink wrap, how many layers deep? It's actually made up a little decoy that if you look at it, it's about the same size as 5 cans in their package. The saver was mounted inside with the AC4 option, and then the external accelerometer was draped to the top of the stack so we could measure input and response. And we did quite a few trips with Pringles. It's amazing the ones they'd go to, they'd take a whole pallet full of potato chips, and at the end, open every can, pour them out, count how many chips were whole, how many were broken, where it was in the stack. A lot of study and work on potato chips.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So which one's your favorite? I know, it's like asking you which child is your favorite, right?
That's right, I can't say. I don't know, like I say, they're all very interesting. They all have very clever designs internally, Customer just sees how it performs. I get to see how it's made internally. The cleverness of a lot of the circuits to get low power, because that's always been the pushing issue. Low power, low power, low power, because they've got to run off of batteries. So.
Yeah, it's one thing to do this where you can plug it into a wall outlet.
Sure.
It's another thing where you have to turn it loose in the environment for 90 days.
Right. Try and find a flashlight that will run for 90 days on a set of batteries. Or a Walkman player. It just doesn't happen. Yet we've got to continuously monitor and record 4 or 5 channels of data, temperature and humidity, keep all this stuff going, and do it for 90 days out in the field.
Yeah,
whether it's hot or cold.
It's very cool. Very cool.
So, like I said, they're all my favorite in one way because I get to see the innards and the secrets of how you get that, what it takes to get that low power and high performance.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for taking the time with us today. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, not that I can think of.
I'm sure we'll be back.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Bill.